Ambassador Volshin Yilgar at your service. His Majesty names you our Imperial Envoy. An extension of the throne's authority. You've seen how wild the Living Lands has become, both in nature and in politics. The source of the Blight eludes us still. Just be careful.
Okay, Obsidian Entertainment has made a fantasy RPG game named Avowed. And, despite me not being, very interested in fantasy stuff, I played it. And I'll say this, I enjoyed it. Now, this game is about you play a godlike who, so like you have like the powers of a certain god, but you are called by this god who is trapped, and you basically have to go free them. But throughout your journey, you start, finding, new people, interacting, and something bigger is happening with all these factions, and you get to learn more about yourself. That's the crux of the game. And, I've never been super into fantasy stuff, just in general. Especially, like, fantasy games. I don't really play them a lot. Like, I've tried Skyrim, like, multiple times, and I can't get into it, unfortunately. Like, I've tried numerous times, and I've been like, yeah, this just isn't for me. So this kind of was, from the looks of it, it was kind of the same way. And then I found out it was from Obsidian, who did, Fallout New Vegas, Neverwinter Nights 2, South Park: The Stick of Truth, and then The Outer Worlds, which I really, really like that game, which I cannot wait for the sequel this year. And so this kind of feels like their version of something like Skyrim, but also something like memories drawing a blank. Kingdom Come, something like that. It kind of feels like amalgamation of a whole bunch of things. And I will say this, the Outer Worlds is, I'm not going to try to compare this with, like, the Outer Worlds, because they're two extremely different games. Outer Worlds is more over-the-top space shooter, where with this, it's more, more serious. Yes, you do get, like, some funny bits here and there, especially, like, with some of the people you meet, and even, like, with some of your companions. But, they're two very different games. So I'll start out with companions. They're cool, and they have, some really unique abilities, but I had like two for a while. I had two for a little bit, and the second I found one, this seems to happen with, like, a whole bunch of games, including the Outer Worlds, was like, once I got one person, then they were just with me until the very end. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm using you to the very end. And, like, the first companion you meet, I had them for a bit. And then the second one, I was just kind of like, okay, like, you're just, okay. But then once I got the third and fourth ones, the two of them were just they were it for the whole ride, the whole rest of the ride. So, because one, I like their characters the best, and two, their abilities were extremely useful, and I really liked them. But it didn't happen towards the very end, but, you really don't get that kind of, like, sense, like, oh, they're teammates, until, like, you're kind of talking with them a little bit, but then it's mainly, like, towards, like, the very end, when there's a moment where your companions show just how gracious and grateful they are to you and how you are to them. It was a very sweet moment, and it unfortunately doesn't happen towards like the very end, but I still really liked that, because it was kind of like here they are, like, like, yeah, we are very dysfunctional, but we are teammates and we look out for each other. So that was cool. Each realm you visit is different, and I also like how how they function is well done and made. I really like the score. The combat does take a little bit getting used to. Like, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. But it does take a little bit of time to get used to. Some areas like enemies, there's just mounds of enemies. And so it was almost kind of like will these calm down? Like, jeez. Like, you'll be battling 4, and then another 4 will show up. And then another 4 will show up. And it's like, where do they come from? It's like they didn't come from anywhere. And no enemy has, like, a spell or anything like that like, summons them. So it was almost kind of like they just randomly spawned. And it's like, can we just kind of calm down, please? So there was a little bit of that I didn't like. The final boss felt a little anticlimactic. Personally, a little easy for me. I don't want to get into spoilers about it, but it was definitely something where this certain a battle, you actually fight them earlier, maybe. It depends on your choices, but you fight them previous, and then it's maybe like an hour or 2 later, you then fight them again, and that's your final battle. And so their pattern didn't change. So it's kind of like, okay, I know exactly what you're going to do. This is just extended. So it really didn't feel hard to me. There was like moments before that I felt were harder than the final battle, despite, leveling up and everything like that. But, so it felt a little anticlimactic for me, but satisfying, but was still a little like, okay, like, all right. Overall, it was a very interesting game. I had some flaws, mainly with the combat. I wish it was a little better. That's why, like, a typical, like, if I play, like, an RPG game, a typical RPG game that I play is a shooter game, much like Fallout or, like, the Outer Worlds, and not, like, ones where you have swords, like, like fantasy stuff like Skyrim. It's because it's kind of like the combat system is very different. I prefer a shooter over a hack and slash kind of thing. And so, it took a little getting used to, but, with a game like this, I was kind of going like, do I want to play it? Do I not want to play it? And I tried it out, and I just kept going with it. That says it. That says it all. Like, so the fact that I went from I don't really know about this to you know what? While I did have some flaws with it, I still enjoyed it nonetheless. So, I mean, I maybe it has to do with the fact that, it's not Bethesda Game Studios doing it. And in fact, it was Obsidian. I've really enjoyed their games. Maybe that has to do with it. It almost felt like a fantasy mixed in with, like, pirates in a strange way, which was kind of cool. The story was interesting. At times, it felt a little padded out and padded and stretched out, where it was kind of like, yeah, you could have told me this an hour ago and nothing would have changed. So, but, and at the moment, I have no real big intentions to potentially replay this at this current moment. But still, with the companions and a lot of cool and fun abilities, I think Obsidian still manages to make a really interesting and intriguing fantasy RPG game. and I would give this, I was teetering on like a high average, but thinking about like the companions and the cool stuff you do get to do, it does come to a low grade. I think if you want a little change from stuff like Skyrim or Witcher or any of those other like fantasy RPG games, I'd say play this one. You might not enjoy it as to some degree as those other games, but it's still intriguing enough to keep you interested and to keep you playing. And there's enough cool stuff in there to, keep you interacted. And, with Obsidian, they always manage to do stuff where it's like, you guys didn't really need to do that, but you did anyway. So that's what I like about them. And who knows, maybe this one does pretty well. I don't know at the moment, but maybe this does well enough for them to say, hey, we're going to do another one. But we will see.
There is no easy path from here, for you or any of us. So you will decide. The choice is yours, as will be the consequences. History waits for you, Envoy. Go meet it.